All right, good morning, agents. This is Kevin Lauren. I'm the Director of Training and Marketing, and today we're going to go over the CDA process with Lauren and with Bill. And before that, we are going to bring Bill Seitz, our corporate broker, on the line. Good morning, Bill. How are you?
I am staying cool. How are you, Kevin?
All right, same thing. Trying not to overheat over here.
It's been a cooker.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, and let me bring on Cameron Alley from Clearview Mortgage. Good morning, Cameron. How are you?
Good morning. How are you?
Doing all right.
Awesome.
And yeah, so we're going to have Cameron bring us up to speed on what's going on in mortgage land. And after that, we're going to bring our own Raquel Bauer on the line just to reintroduce you guys to our awesome new escrow agent for Legacy Escrow. But before that, Cameron, what's going on out there in mortgage land?
Could you please make me a panelist, Kevin?
I could totally
Could you
do
give a
it.
sec?
Yeah.
Just want to show you guys some stuff, obviously, as always.
All right, you are now a panelist. Congratulations on the upgrade. And you may need to enable your.
Okay, now we're good.
That works.
All right, everybody. Can you guys hear me loud and clear?
Oh, yeah.
All right,
Perfect.
wonderful. So as expected last week, there's a lot of large corporate auctions taking place right now, which has been driving up bonds. This week, Walmart, Target, McDonald's, Amazon, I think Ford, and I think there was like probably another 6 or 7 Fortune 500 companies that auctioned off about 45 billion in bonds. So that's why we're seeing all this volatility right here. I don't know if you guys can really check that out, but all of this throughout, this is not normal, the way that bonds are moving up and down. So as I pretty much say every week, it's all about timing as far as the lock. If you want to save, your client's money, you got to be it's not like how it used to be where you just lock it right away, and you got to kind of watch the market and kind of do whatever is going to help them and be more proactive as far as our pricing selection and everything. But anyway, so many of these bonds were obviously picked up during COVID when the market tanked, and they've all been held on to until recently. So this is the Fed, all of these large companies that have been holding on to these things. So basically, the increase in bonds is not on its traditional trajectory at all, and we can expect to see less volatile bond market in the coming months as these auctions continue to take place. So kind of what I've been saying, like yesterday, I think we went up 15 basis points, and today we came down 5 basis points. And I do expect for us tomorrow to probably come down another 5 basis points. But in regular history, 5 basis point move in one day is insane, right? And as of right now in this market, 5 basis points up or down is like, wow, the market's pretty solid today. It's not as volatile. So we'll begin to see that normalize, hopefully, I believe. But mortgage demand dropped further, obviously, as rates continue to kind of go on their volatile move, but it's not affecting purchase applications nearly as heavily, with many homeowners expecting rates to fall again and take advantage of a refinance in the future. So I just want to share these numbers with you guys. Refinance applications are 83% lower this same week as compared to 2021. However, purchase applications have only dropped 23%. But with rates being double what they were last year at the same time, it's estimated that about 40% of people who were maybe trying to buy last year or the year before when rates are low no longer qualify. So what this data is telling us is that mortgage demand, as far as on the purchase side, is still insanely high. Because if applications have only dropped 23%, but the amount of people that can afford a home have dropped by almost 40, that tells you right there that people still want to buy homes. And I think we'll be on the brink of a very, very good year in our realm of the economy if rates do go down as expected next year, especially if prices continue to soften a bit and inventory stays, relatively aggressive. So one thing that we have not really been talking about is the stock market and its involvement in all this. We continue to see rallies in the stock market where throughout history with rates going up this fast, that would be pretty much nearly impossible due to the cost of capital for a lot of the large corporations and small business owners. We do expect for the stock market to normalize especially with the hiring freeze by a lot of these large corporations. And once that happens, investors will end up rushing to bonds again. And what's an interesting note about the stock market. So today the Dow's up 240 points, which, and I think yesterday we were up 150, I believe. But with the economic numbers that are coming out and everything, it doesn't really make sense as to why we keep having these rallies. Obviously, the Dow is a lot lower than it was before, as far as last year. But obviously, last year is super inflated, so everyone expected for it to come down. But we'll see what happens with this. But this goes under 30,000 or maybe down to like the 28 mark. You're going to see people buying bonds like crazy, and rates are going to go down. And then another really interesting note about the stock market is we're in an era where computers and AI are purchasing most of the stocks for large hedge funds. So they don't act emotionally. So the stock market's completely different than it used to be, which is why the market doesn't react to economic figures and rate changes like it used to. So, these people are buying and selling thousands, millions and millions of stocks every minute. So really, it's just, okay, where can we make a penny rather than where is the good investment? So I just wanted to add that because that kind of explains what the stock market does nowadays and why it's so much different than it used to be. And then another thing, more Americans right now have like 2 full-time jobs than ever before. So a lot of the job numbers that are coming out are obviously way off, even though they say, okay, well, we added, 150, 200,000 jobs. It's not true. It's just that more people are getting second jobs. And you can actually see that in the data too. If you look at the reports, which if you want to see some interesting stuff, definitely look at those reports because they're pretty interesting. But so that's kind of throwing off these job numbers, which the job numbers are one of the reasons why the stock market's kind of staying up. But if you look at it, with more than just like a grain of salt, you can tell that it's not, what they're kind of saying it is. And once these large companies continue, I mean, they've already started the hiring freezes, many of them. But if these continue, obviously those employment numbers will come off. And the moral of the story, my whole explanation for that is that people are going to rush back to bonds. And then something else too that I thought was interesting is that Amazon is closing and scrapping plans for like dozens of warehouses in the United States amid slowing sales growth, which obviously we expect. And then the increase in capital. So as one of the biggest companies in the world, that kind of shows you where we're at. But that's not saying that for us, it's not a huge, like the whole economy, the way that, it's not big picture economy stuff that we're really talking about here. It's the market and stuff like this. Investors look at it, and that's what's going to eventually bring down bonds, I believe. So don't be scared by the volatility because it's an emotional ride. And man, I've been watching it every day for a long time now. So, but everything will normalize and demand is still really high. We can see it with all the data. So, so I think we'll be for a good year next year. And then I wanted to share this real quick too. Just wanted to give you guys a quick little screenshot here. This is UWM, who's definitely our fastest lender, one of our best partners. And we just wanted to show you the basically submission to clear to close. We're averaging 11 days right there. So that's pretty impressive, obviously. And just wanted to show that to you because we did talk about how quick we were previously, but we just have kind of not shown you that. So I just wanted to show you a little snapshot there. But I think that's about it for today. I'm sure Bill has something to add.
Absolutely. And yeah, that 11 days clear to close on average, that's smoking hot, guys. So just a good snapshot of what Clearview Mortgage does. Yeah. So what do you got to say, Bill?
Yeah, just on that, that just gives everybody a competitive advantage. once again, for those that are new to Alta Realty Group and the overall company, it's really, we have these really, amazing loan officers in place to help you close your deals faster, and also to be able to write your offers with more aggressive terms, and allows you to, just have more opportunities. So, these are people that know what they're doing. So if you're frustrated with your lender, if you don't have a go-to person, please utilize Cameron or any of other loan officers that you might be talking to, because there's just, now more than ever too, as Cameron was talking about just the rates going up. And I do think I saw something on CNBC this morning. The Fed's talking about another 3/4 point hike. I think there was an 82% probability they're going to raise the federal funds rate again, which we know doesn't necessarily translate to exactly 3/4 of a point in interest rate, but it is still trending up. Income is tighter. I am seeing, just on an overall, seeing more deals fall out of escrow, seeing more deals, get canceled. So if you're tight on income, you got to have somebody that really knows how to scrutinize this stuff and get creative and get the deal closed. So,
yeah, I mean, if I could add to that too, I mean, literally, I don't think there's really ever been a time where it's harder to qualify than right now. It's going to be, it's not, obviously it's not going to last forever. And the quicker that they raise rates, the quicker they're going to come down, I'm telling you, because we can't, these companies are going to be taking a huge hit with that expensive of capital. But so you really got to look at creative ways to get people qualified, and someone who's going to be really straightforward with your client, and straightforward with you too, because you don't want to waste your time, and we want to put your clients in a position. So let's say they can't qualify. Well, we'll take the time to set up a plan so that we can get them qualified when the time is hot. Just because someone can't buy a house right now doesn't mean that you shouldn't have them on your back burner and still be doing, your due diligence for them, because the market's going to turn. And if you have, 50 potential buyers that you've stayed in touch with and you have great relationships with, and, you've had a good lender talk to and gave them a game plan, it's going to be a lot easier. Sometimes someone can be 20% over the DTI limits, and we can make a 2-month plan and get them under so that they can get qualified. So that's pretty much all I had to add.
That's a good thing to add. All right. Thank you so much, Cameron. Always appreciate your insight.
Thanks.
All right. And you guys know how to get a hold of Cameron. Cameron at cdmloans.com, easiest way to get a hold of him. And you could also just go to clearviewmortgageca.com and go to the website. So speaking of awesome people and awesome partners, I want to bring on Raquel from Legacy Escrow. And let me share my screen real quick for you guys. All right, let me bring on Raquel. All right, good morning, Raquel. Can you hear us?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Absolutely. So,
good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday to you. So Raquel is out of the gates, already a lot of agents taking advantage of her service. And
yes,
that's been great. So Raquel,
I just wanted to say I'm so excited to share that. Thank you very much for doing that. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for the ones that are using me, facilitating seller net sheets and getting those escrows open. Wow, I'm just so excited. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate the support. And then just utilizing your in-house ARG, team. Cameron, what great news about United Wholesale Mortgage. I absolutely love working with them. It's the best, easiest escrow process when it comes to loans. So thank you very much for sharing that 11-day close. That's awesome. So and appreciate everybody's support out there. At least I personally do. And I'm here for your guys' escrow needs. I'm getting people asking for listing pre's, and that's awesome. Just so you guys know, when we get those listing pre's and we see that there's a child support or an IRS lien or deeds that were done with no title insurance, we get those cleaned up before you guys actually get contracts. So if you ever need anything like that, or you need questions, if you have one, please give me a call. I'm here for all your guys' escrow needs. But again, thank you guys very much for the support. I love seeing the escrows. It's off and running, and I'm just so excited.
Not bad, Raquel. Well, thanks for coming on the Wednesday webinar. And of course, if you need to open an escrow with Raquel, you can call the escrow hotline 949-200-9305, or you can send Raquel an email at raquel@legacyescrowservice.com. So thanks again, Raquel.
Thank you. Everybody stay safe and try to stay cool, hydrated, and in this excessive heat. I know it's hard to be out there, so stay cool.
Stay inside. All right. Thanks, Raquel. All right,
Thank
great. So now we're going to switch gears to our presentation, and I'm going to bring Bill Seitz back on the line, as well as Lauren Noack. And Lauren, can you say hello to us?
Hello, everybody.
Perfect. And I'm going to promote you to panelist. Congratulations.
Woo!
And of course, there you go.
Great.
Right. I was going to say, whenever you get promoted to panelist, you still have to unmute yourself, as we're finding
You can
out.
be a panelist, but you're not allowed to talk.
Totally. All right, perfect. So Lauren is our she is our liaison and takes care of all of our compliance in conjunction with Bill Seitz, the corporate broker. And so what do you got for us today, guys?
I guess I'll start real quick, Lauren. We just thought it'd be a really good time to review just the process here at Alta Realty Group. Sometimes we know that new agents or existing agents maybe need just to be refreshed on the process. We've moved from .loop to SkySlope recently, and that was, I think, a big victory for a lot of the agents, because we were getting some feedback that .loop maybe wasn't the most user friendly, but we have moved back to SkySlope. We want to review kind of the process briefly. We're not going to spend too much time, but if you have any questions at the end, we'd welcome that. But we want to run through this. How do you effectively get your file inputted? How do you get it reviewed? And ultimately, how do you get your CDA and get paid and have a happy face when your transaction closes? So we want to make sure that everybody understands this. It's a super easy process if everyone kind of follows the protocol. We do come across issues when things get out of the order that we'd like them to be. So we want to run through what is the perfect world process for getting your file into the system, getting it reviewed, and ultimately getting your CDA out so you can get paid on that close of escrow date. Right, Lauren?
Yes, exactly.
No, that's great. Yeah, setting expectations is always a really, really good thing for all parties involved. So this is kind of a set the expectations kind of a presentation, right, Lauren?
Exactly. And for the time being, it's just me. And so for sanity's sake, I really want to make sure that we're all on the same page of how to make this process work best for everybody. And sometimes it's just a matter of a quick tip or a trick that I didn't know I could do that, or that makes it way easier. And it helps speed the process along, because if there gets to be a handful of files that have a ton of issues, it kind of clogs up the machine for everybody else that's able to manage it. So hopefully this will get everybody all on the same page. And again, we can answer any questions and stuff at the end as well. So I guess I'll just jump right in here. Let me.
Yeah, and I'll keep an eye on the questions.
Cool. Okay. So Jessica is one of my lead TCs, so I just hopped into her account to do this demo. But typically this is what you should see in your dashboard. And we're going to start really quickly with just the basics. We'll start with creating your listing. And when you do that, you go through the Sky automation, which should help you get most of the basic information in here. You have the option, if you use your SkySlope forms, you can pull it from that, or you can just click address lookup, and that's usually the easiest, quickest way I've found. And another thing as well, you can also switch to manual entry if you're like, I don't want to do all these different tabs and stuff. if you click switch to manual entry, you can go back to their old version of just like all the different the old setup, if you prefer that way. So this way you input the address, and I think you're an agent. Yes. Okay. And so these are your options for your listings, right? Because we're just inputting your listings. So you have commercial listings, 5+ units, traditional commercial, but with car forms. Your regular residential 1 to 4 unit listings, a vacant land listing, and your lease listings for residential. And we are also working on a manufactured home, mobile home checklist as well for listings. So our most common is going to be our residential. Enter that in, enter in your commissions. If you have a co-listing agent, you can add their info here as well. You don't have to. I usually just kind of do the most basic information just to get it open. And whatever your source is.
And also, just to interject here quickly, if you get a listing, we really would like you, and we really do need you to get this listing, at least get this file started as a listing in the system within 72 hours of getting the listing. We really need to be able to monitor the inventory of the company. If we start getting calls, or we start getting different things, and we don't have it in the system, it makes it really difficult for us to keep track of what's going on. So just as a reminder, you go on your listing appointment, you get everything signed. This process should be started within 3 days at the latest.
Yes, that's ideal for sure. You also have the option in here if you want to order your NHD report. These amounts aren't due, they still will invoice escrow. You can set it up to be billed at closing, so don't feel like you have to pay those amounts right now, or you can obviously just say no thanks. And you can enter in your escrow if you want to pre-open escrow, which in Northern California, sometimes that's pretty common. Is to get that started. And like Raquel was mentioning of getting your prelim ordered and your NHD reports and getting this process started, that's definitely an option. Verify all of your information and then create your listing. So right away, it'll take you to the checklist, and this is broken down to, these are the documents noted here as required, or are the minimum of what we need on the listings, with some exceptions. And the main ones that tend to be kind of sticking points, the SELM or the MLS exclusion form, and the MLS printout active status. So the reason that I have both of these set as required is it's typically an either or situation. If the listing goes onto MLS within 48 hours of taking the listing, then you can upload the MLS printout and leave this blank. And then when I'm reviewing the listing paperwork, I'll go in and make this unrequired. But sometimes I'll receive a listing, well past the 72 hours of having it signed and submitted to the brokerage. And I'll see, hey, this was taken in July. There's no MLS exclusion and there's no MLS active status. So in that case, we would need both. Let us know if it's going to be excluded, and then provide that MLS printout when that becomes available. So that's typically the most common. The other question I get a lot is the disclosure information advisory. This is just a really good document to include with your listing paperwork. It goes over what they're going to be expected to complete with the property disclosures. And all throughout California, sellers should be completing their disclosures while it's a listing. Get a jump start on that paperwork because it's a lot, and you want to give them the courtesy to be able to take their time and fill it out. So it's important that they get this disclosure document. If you haven't already incorporated it into your listing package, I recommend that. And then again, once the documents are submitted, then go through and review them, and some things may or may not then become required or applicable, depending on what is needed and what your listing agreement says. You'll also find any notes that I leave about the specific documents will be left in this box. And if you have a note, please feel free to add these into the comments. If you're like, hey, I know this initial is missing, I'm, collecting it, or like, I wasn't sure if I needed this or not, or anything like that, I'll check those and respond to those as well. So feel free to leave those comments there. You do have an option to drag and drop documents into placeholders. Let me see if I have a general file here. Okay, so you can go in and take a document and drag and drop, and it will upload the document individually into that file. If you just have a couple of one-offs. The other thing that you can do is take the document and upload it here into just the general, if you have like one contract, and you can dump it in here. And then you can go over here to that attachment and click on split. And when you do that, it pulls up this window, and now you can go through and split up the documents. And it will not only rename the attachments and apply them to the file, but it will split them up for you and upload them to those placeholders, so you don't have to go back in, split it separately, re-upload it, and then come back in and drop it in. Oops. So let's do this real quick here. Oops. This is the CCPA. Okay, so then you just split and assign. And go back to your checklist. And now you can see here, okay, I've already uploaded all of these. These are the things I have to manually add. Great. The other thing that I've been hearing, and I don't have the option to fix this setting, is that you can't accept a contract until all the required documents are uploaded. And so this is something that a lot of agents have been running into. One, when you don't upload your listing until you're ready to open escrow, agents get stuck here because they may not have all of the items, or I may not be able to review the listing agreement to remove this, MLS or exclusion requirement, and you can't get past it. So make sure that this gets uploaded in a timely manner. Things happen sometimes. You have a pocket listing and a buyer, and you do the listing and the escrow right at the same time, and you got to go through quickly. I will give you a workaround, even though everything in my body is telling me not to. You have an option. You can upload a placeholder document here. That is either just like a blank PDF. Some people write like a Word document that says placeholder, or you can upload a duplicate of whatever document. When you fill these slots, you can then go and accept the contract, go through that process, and then come back in here and remove the documents for the placeholders that don't apply, and that will get you around that requirement. If you upload a document into the wrong placeholder by mistake, obviously you can just click X. It'll remove that document, but the document will still be in this list of documents. It doesn't delete it from the whole entire transaction. So keep that in mind as well. And are there any questions about this so far? Yeah.
Yeah, just a quick general question from Ken. He asks, do documents have to be individually scanned and uploaded? And in best case, no.
No. You see this email address up here? What you can do is actually email. I'll show you here real quick.
Yeah, it's a really cool feature, Ken. You're just going to want to email those documents to this specific email for that transaction, right?
Yep. Yes, exactly. And so I will do here. to that email address. You don't even have to put a subject line. You don't have to put any kind of anything in there. You can just take the documents and upload it, or, you know, attach it to your email and then send. And let's give it a second here. The thing to keep in mind is that it's going to dump it into this documents section. And so I might give it a moment here. But it's nice when you're going throughout the process where you can, as you're emailing somebody else, if you're returning signed disclosures, you can include this transactions email as well.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Okay, there we go.
I'm sure
So here,
others
yeah,
have the
so
same
then
question.
Yeah, and you can upload it here. And then if you do that with a whole disclosure package or the full contract, let's say you're emailing a copy to the lender or to escrow, throw this email in there as well, attach the document, it's already uploaded, and then you can split it from here. So that's an option. And let me just real quick here dump these documents to fill this up so we can take this from a listing to an escrow. Okay, so the other thing to keep in mind is your contacts. If you have an outside TC, you have a couple of options, which we've had questions about as well. You can add them here as a miscellaneous contact. You could put them as their, you know, their contact type is the transaction coordinator, or, you know, your assistant or your admin or anything like that. And what this does, adding them as a contact, is that when I process the CDA or the commission instructions, if I send anything out through SkySlope, they are available from the dropdown so that I can set them up to also receive a copy. I don't have like a database of everybody's assistants or TCs or email addresses or all that stuff. So if you just input it in here, that will be super helpful. And here, so it just took a second for everything. But so now you see that you can do an accepted contract. So I'm going to jump over to now having this listing as an accepted contract. And we're going to go through a couple of these tabs. The main one here is this checklist type. You want to make sure that the checklists listed have these dashes in front of them. That's how you know you have the most updated list. But what I'm seeing a lot, typically you're going to have a standard sale of 1 to 4 units, but we do have this other checklist that's for REOs, probates, and successor trustees. So if you're dealing with an exempt seller, you know it's an exempt seller, use this checklist because there won't be placeholders for the TDS and the SPQ. There won't be, you know, certain expectations for documents and requirements won't be on this checklist because you're dealing with an exempt seller. You also have an option for referrals only. If you get a referral, we do still need a copy of the referral fee agreement, the other office's W-9 if we're paying a referral fee to somebody else, and any closing paperwork. So there's this option, you could submit it and upload that document. The thing to note about referral only is, from what I can tell, you should submit it. If you're receiving a referral, submit it as like you're representing the buyer. Otherwise, it's going to say you have to have a listing first, and it'll make you go through that whole process. So just say you're representing the buyer, add the address for the referral address, and then use this checklist. And then the other thing I'll note about these checklists is for referrals and for leases, keep in mind that there are no CDAs. So the full check amount has to go to the corporate, and then they'll disperse to you guys from there. So we do still need the documentation. It has to get reviewed. It has to get cleared. But there is not the specific CDA document that will be provided for those. Okay, what are these other? Again, if you have this information, it's helpful. I'm As a transaction coordinator, details are my jam. So if there's a field and I have the information, I like to fill it out. The next tab, so these are all the contacts. The thing that's kind of misleading on this tab is if you have multiple sellers or multiple buyers. So you can input the information. You would have done this for the listing. And it says here, add a new seller. It's kind of misleading. It's not like you're replacing that seller or replacing that buyer. You're just adding on a secondary one. So keep that in mind. Buyer Betty, buyer save. And then the other thing as well, so Northern California typically will not have a specific escrow company. You're going to have the title company that is handling the funds and the escrow process. So you would input that information here. For Southern California, you're going to have an escrow company. So just scroll down a little bit further. I know these are all marked red as required, but it's whichever type you're filling out. If we were an attorney state, you would fill that out. But sometimes the reason this is important is, again, with the CDA and the signed commission instructions, I want to help you guys out by also including the escrow officer or the title officer on a copy of those documents once they're signed. And so if you don't have this information, or sometimes I'll see this filled out as like TBD at email.com, and it's like, okay, great. But if I'm going and getting these things signed, then now you're going to have to be responsible for forwarding that onto escrow. So if you don't have it at the time, make sure you come back and input it. But if you do have it, again, put that in there, because that will save everybody a step and it can just go directly to the person that needs it.
And Lauren, did you see Alejandro's question that he only sees 4 in the drop-down list of type?
Do they have the check marks next to them, or the dashes next to them?
Alejandro, have the dashes next to it.
I can take if he can like screenshot it or something, I can look at it afterwards, but it might be a SkySlope issue.
Got it. Yes. So Alejandro, if you just ping Lauren separately.
Yeah. Okay, so the main contacts, right? Seller, buyer, title or escrow, and the agent on the other side. These are all required. You could move forward from here. Again, you do have this option for the miscellaneous contact. If you needed to add, again, at this point, a transaction coordinator or another sort of contact, you can put that in this tab as well. And then you would go to submit. This takes you to the commission section. And as you're filling this out, keep in mind that this is the tab that I look at specifically for CDAs. So one, we want to make sure that all this information is up to date. If there's been a price change, make sure you're updating the price. If there's been a change in the commission splits, let me know. When you input a TC fee and the transaction coordinator name, this tells me that you are paying a TC, not that there's like one in general or that it's being paid for by, the client or something like that. Like that's what I think when you input that information there. So keep that in mind. If you have any referral information, you can put that in here. And also we would need a copy of the W-9 as well. If you have any commission like notes or comments, things that you want to keep in to let us know about the commission, you can add that here. But this section down here is really what's the most helpful for all parties involved if you fill it out. This section is the commission breakdown. And so when you input in here, you can put your name, where you want your check to be sent. You can also then add an additional person if you need to. If you have 2 agents, you can split them up 50-50. And add their information if you've added them as another agent. But when you fill out this information, especially if you have like a TC or somebody if you have like an e-commission or something where there's like a specific address that those funds need to go to. Otherwise, it's just going to be their name, and then their escrow won't have any specifics on like where to send that information. So utilize this spot here because that'll be really helpful. And then you can click submit and open escrow, but then that's an option if you've already input your escrow officer. If you need to send them that information, you can use that option, or you can just click submit if escrow has already been submitted. So now you have a new checklist with all the sales documentation. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you'll see all of your listing paperwork down here. It's all still here, but now you have the added purchase agreement stuff. And it's the same process as before. We need these documents split up. Once they've been submitted, they'll get reviewed and the checklist will get modified accordingly. The one thing to note is this new item here asking if this is an OpCity deal. We have to track and know if you've received an OpCity referral. If you don't know what OpCity is, it's not an OpCity deal. You don't have it. So you can just write no here and click save. And then when I'm going through and reviewing the transaction, I'll remove this as a requirement. And that's how we'll be able to tell. And then if it is, then we'll modify accordingly. But those are the main components for getting this file set up. And same if it's your buyer, you'll go through that similar process, obviously without the listing stuff before that. So ideally, we would like to have your listing submitted, within 3 days of getting the listing, sooner rather than later. Submit what you have just so we can get a jump start on reviewing that. And then once you've opened escrow, obviously, again, ideally, I don't remember off the top of my head if the DRE requirement is 48 hours or 72 hours after signing, but
I think it is 48.
Yeah, as a brokerage, we're required to hold these documents and these contracts. So sooner rather than later is always ideal. So you would submit your initial offer package, right? Escrow opens, you're going to have a signed contract. That might be all that you have to begin with, right? Just your general sales documentation. And then maybe a couple days later, you get your escrow information, some of the escrow documents. Escrow might send you also the NHD report and the prelim. You can add that. And then within the default in the contract is 17 days, right? So 17 days or less, you should have signed disclosures because, again, 17 days to remove that investigation contingency. So you should at least have some signed disclosures. You might have a couple of stragglers, that's fine, but a big bulk of those, that should get uploaded. And then again, also at that same time, if you're removing all of your contingencies, you should have a home inspection. You should have your prelim, you should have your NHD report. You should have if there's wooden pests, maybe you'll have that. You might not have termite completion at that point, that's fine. But these items that are marked required, you should have those by those 17 days minimum, right? Or whatever your shortened time frame is. At that point, I go through and I try to review the documents as they come in. Unlike .loop, there's no option for me to get notified when something gets submitted. You can't ask for it to be reviewed or submit it for review. It's just kind of like, hey, there's new documents to review. There's new documents to review. So I try and do that as they come in. But the other thing, so once I've reviewed them, and if there is enough documentation in here, if you have your contract items, if you have your escrow paperwork, your reports, a majority of your disclosures, we'll release the CDA. There are some files that I've released the CDA and it's not closing for like another 4 weeks. So if you have most of your documentation, especially Northern California, where a lot of this stuff is provided with the offer, like you should get the CDA fairly quickly. The main things that will hold up a CDA is your agent visual inspection. So Sometimes if you're on the buyer side and you're like waiting to get it back from the seller, that might be the only item, but we have to wait for your avid before we can release the CDA. But otherwise, there's no reason why these shouldn't get released in advance. The other thing that I utilize to monitor is that SkySlope sends me notifications of when a transaction is a week out from closing. And so I use that as my last line default to go in and look at transactions and be like, hey, this is close to closing, but we don't have any disclosures. So we need an extension, we need disclosures, like let's get a jump on it. But what's been happening a lot is that this close of escrow date isn't getting updated. And so all of a sudden I'm getting these panicked emails of like, we're going to close tomorrow. Like, I need this looked at. I need a CDA, whatever. And I'm like, it's not even on my list to close for another 3 weeks, oh, we've closed early. If that's the case, just come in here to the transaction tab and just update the closing date. I get a notification if a closing date's been modified. So it'll tell me, hey, this is actually now closing a lot earlier. It'll tell me it used to be 9/3. There'll be like a line drawn through it. And it'll say it's now closing on 9/9. So I know to jump in there and look at it. That's probably your best trigger if we're like down to the wire and you still don't have the CDA.
Yeah, and that just want to interject there. That's a really, really important component to this whole thing working smoothly. And it's something that's so simple, take a matter of seconds to keep that thing accurate, right? When this thing, goes sideways, it goes sideways for simple things that could have been caught or fixed along the way. And I feel like too, and Lauren, you'll probably agree, that it's really easy to get this thing like off the ground, a new transaction off the ground, and get it prepared for having a good, smooth file upload and review. But if you become the agent that doesn't get it handled early, it tends to spin out of control faster and faster as you get closer to the end because you didn't do the initial things up front right. So if you take the time to get into the system, you spend the extra couple minutes of making sure, or your TC gets things right and in there and get everything uploaded on the initial, it becomes so much easier to the back end of the transaction to get signed off, CDA out. Like, that's the way we want it to work. That's the way it's supposed to work. But if you become a file dumping agent in the bottom of the ninth inning and you're panicking because you want to get paid, well, we want you to get paid. There's no question about that. But we have requirements as well on the brokerage side and liability, and you have liability as well. So we have to have some sort of efficient system to do this. And there is this process, it can be very efficient, but you have the responsibility to do this, in the right way. So we're spending that extra time this morning to make sure you really understand and can see how it's supposed to work. So you're like, oh, okay, I'm not going to be that agent that, throws, a pile of bricks into the system. So, we're not trying to be ultra, harsh or be jerks, but it's really, right. It can work very well if we follow these simple guidelines. So I also want to say too, if you do have a TC that's outside of our system, or, that's fine. But we know that a lot of you do have, I recommend, Kevin's going to send this out on replay. So this is being recorded. We're going to have it go back out. So you can send this to your TC. Okay, cool. They can spend, 20 minutes reviewing this, and they know exactly what the expectation is too, and how to be successful in our system.
Yeah, exactly. And if you have questions, again, I am one person, I'm a human being. If you're not getting a response, or if something comes up that you're like, I tried to do this quickly, maybe you got sick and so you couldn't upload everything until like it was about to close or something, just email me and just say like, hey, can you just take a quick look at this? Or I'm happy to do that. I know things come up, and feel free to reach out to me directly if you need a CDA correction, or if, But keep in mind that when I'm reviewing these files, I am reviewing what is on paper. And so sometimes I'm looking at it and I'm saying, okay, this box is checked or this was written. And then I get these messages that are like, that's not the case anymore. Like it doesn't apply. And it's like, well, your paperwork says it does. I don't, like I'm going off of what is on paper and what's in the agreement. And at the end of the day, that's what any judge or court is going to do as well. And that's how I have to look at these files, is not even necessarily like, what do we need in case we get a DRE audit tomorrow? Knock on wood, that never happens. But what about in 3 years when we have to come and dig this out and pull up this file and nobody remembers, what the specific situation was? I have to make sure that everything is documented and it's done correctly. And so I did just want to touch on a couple of things that people have a lot of questions about, specifically requirements like the MLS printout. When it's your listing and I require that MLS printout, if I know it's on the MLS and there isn't an exclusion for the entire listing period, I'm looking at that MLS, one, to make sure the listing price matches what's on the listing agreement. I'm looking to confirm the commission amount that you're offering to the co-op agent. I'm looking to see if there's an HOA or not. I'm looking to verify the year built and if, what property type it is, because all of that's going to dictate additional document requirements. When it goes into escrow, I also ask for a backup or pending status, because sometimes that list price has changed when it was a listing and the MLS active matches the listing agreement, but now you've opened escrow and I see there's been a change in list price. That has to be documented. I have to verify that. When you're the buyer's agent, I look at that commission that's offered and I cross-reference what you've input into SkySlope. Sometimes those amounts are different. If that's the case, there's a document I have to ask for or require. The realist tax profile, the property profile, that tells me what sellers are on title. If this is your buyer, maybe tax data showing it's in a trust, but that wasn't mentioned in the contract anywhere. That's going to cause me to have questions. Maybe the MLS printout shows 1 year built, but the tax data shows a different year built. These are all little things that seem annoying or unnecessary, but they really help me and to give the most detailed audit process possible to protect all parties involved. The other thing is the lender approval letter. So your pre-qual letter, approval letter, underwriting, or if the transaction is all cash, then the proof of funds for all cash. This is in the contract. It says that this is attached to the contract. Same with the verification of funds for the down payment. If you have a loan and you have the down payment, we need both of these. If it's all cash, you just do the all cash proof of funds, and then I'll remove this requirement for the down payment. But it's in the contract that this is part of the contract. But I've been getting messages from agents being like, they don't want to give it to us, or the client's not comfortable releasing it. Like, this was in the contract. Like, this is why I'm asking for it. This is contractually there. If you're not getting it, you need to look at your own systems and your own requirements as an agent, because these are things that you should have in your file, and that should be expected. And then the DITA form, the designated electronic delivery address. If the one or both agents has not filled out their email, phone number section on the last page of the contract, we need this form. You can't, if you decide to go back and modify an already accepted contract in that section, you better have that initialed by all parties. Otherwise, just do this form, throw it in with the disclosures, be done with it. Agency confirmation. If on page 1 of the purchase agreement, the DRE numbers are wrong, they're not complete, you've missed a box. Remember, if you are 2 different agents, but you both work with Alta, that's dual agency. So if those boxes aren't correct, then we need that form to correct it. And then the final thing that I've been seeing a lot of is in regards to home inspections. I've been seeing a lot recently, buyers signing off on or using a home inspection from a previous transaction or previous buyer, or a home inspection that the seller has done during the listing period, which is perfectly fine, but we need that uploaded as well as a buyer inspection waiver. If the buyer is not paying for their own third-party inspection, If they're deciding to accept someone else's that they've been provided, then we need that BIW form as well. That's kind of it. So once it's been approved for a CDA, you'll get a notification. Hey, the status is that the CDA has been approved. And that process is that I will go through and fill out the CDA. We'll run it through our channels, verify that everything is correct. I'll upload it here into the document section. I'll upload that CDA, and then I will DigiSign it over to Bill to sign it. And then you as the agent also need to sign the CDA as well. We were running into issues previously where even now, every once in a while, we'll get a CDA signed and then the agent will be like, this isn't right. And so this is your opportunity to review that CDA and verify it's correct. It's a lot easier to make the modifications if it hasn't been signed yet than to like void it out and re-upload it and resend it out and that whole thing. So that's why you guys are asked to sign it as well. It's just another step in the process that really makes things more efficient. So once you and Bill have signed the CDA, then you will get a notification. It'll go to any escrow or whomever else is there to receive copies. And then that signed CDA ends up back here in the Documents tab. It does not automatically get assigned to the placeholder. You don't have to assign it to that placeholder if you don't want to in the checklist here, but you can if you want to. You can add it here for this in the CDA section. And then I guess the final thing is that if your transaction cancels, make sure you upload an executed cancellation of contract. And then if the listing cancels, all the way down here, and you would do the cancellation of listing. Otherwise, if this transaction cancels and it's your listing, there's an option where we can then transfer it back to a listing option in SkySlope. You don't have to re-input it. So make sure that you've included that signed cancellation. So it's accessible for you to reopen escrow right away as well. And then that should do it. Once you have everything uploaded and your file is complete, then I'll change the status to closed and archive the file, and it will get out of your dashboard section here on what transactions are listed. And I think that's kind of it for me.
All right, that was nice and thorough. Appreciate that.
It was super quick and I know it covered a lot. So again, rewatch the video if you need to, ask questions if you need to. We're
For
here to help.
sure. Yeah, and so like Bill said, we'll be putting out this replay this afternoon, and we will also most likely be sending it out probably once a month, just to make sure you guys, have access to this stuff, because it is good to have a refresher, right, Bill?
Yeah, 100%. And if you're like me, I know where my strengths are. And I, was never somebody who was, when I started, it was all the carbon paper forms. It was like 4 copies that you'd have to tear off, and you'd give one to the client, one to the brokerage, one for yourself. And, and like, I realized very early on, I'd rather pay somebody to keep all that stuff organized, keep everything in line, so I could go and work on either getting, selling the property or work on getting more deals. That's just me. Some of you are really good at this stuff and can do it no problem. I think it's really important to know which person you are, because if this isn't your strong suit, good Lord, pay the $400 or whatever the rate is for your TC to do a lot of this for you. I mean, this is stuff that for them is super easy, and it take a lot of peace of mind off your plate too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So really good points, right, Lauren?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, a lot of the frustration with agents is when your file does get reviewed and it comes back with stuff of like, oh my God, I missed a date on a signature. Now I got to go back and get, I need this other form. Whereas, working with a qualified transaction coordinator, they're going to preemptively, take care of that for you.
Exactly. So just a quick reminder, if you want access to all of our ARG trainings, just go to YouTube and do a search for Alta Realty Group, and you'll find our channel. And here you will find all of the Wednesday webinars that we have done over the last 4 or 5 years. So there's a lot of content here. And so, you know, if you always want to find the most recent one, it's going to be right here in the upper left. And also, if you want to search, there is a nice search feature right here. You can just type in, you know, what you're looking for, and those particular webinars will pop up. So don't be afraid to utilize the ARG YouTube channel. It's really, really effective. So agents, with that, I know we went over a little bit, but get out there, make it a great week, make it a productive week, and we will see you guys next week on the webinar. September is Agent Safety Month, so we are going to be doing our agent safety, one of our agent safety trainings next week. So we'll see you guys all next week. And like I said, get out there, make it a great week and a productive week, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye-bye.